Ivan, you do like a 30-second introduction. I'll do a 30-second introduction and then flow into leaving the floor up to Talon.
Cool.
Hey man, hey Talon. My name is Ivan. I'm originally from Russia. I live here in San Diego. I'm a big fan of hardstyle music, and I recently joined the sandiegohardstyle group, and I'm very lucky. So, because in San Diego, there are not a lot of people, as I was assuming. Hopefully, I was wrong. But yeah, I'm also a aspiring producer, so it's really interesting to me to be a part of these kind of interviews. To speak to people who are actually making music, and it's nice to meet you, man. And I hope we will have a nice interview moving forward. Yeah.
Cool. So my name's Marcus. I am a bedroom DJ, but I started listening to house, Eurodance, trance when I was like 6, 7 years old. Years ago, in 2010, a friend showed me hardstyle when I was 15, and my heart was forever wrapped in the scene. So undergrounds, parties, festivals, just kind of trying to expand the scene is my biggest efforts. And I am obliged to have Talon here. He's been a aspiring producer for a while, and we'll get into it, but he did start his own label, and yeah, that's enough talking from me. Talon, please introduce yourself.
Cool. Hey, so as you know, I am Talon. I am an LA-based producer, DJ. I got into, I guess, the scope of EDM like way early on with like bass music, like old school Skrillex and Zomboy and stuff like that. And it was cool. I didn't really desire to be a producer just from liking that, but I eventually found hardstyle on accident. And then kept listening exclusively to that for a while. And then about in 2008 was when I actually picked up producing, and it wasn't very serious. It was just an on and off kind of hobby. And then as, with a pursued interest in something, you start to get a little bit better at it. Once I started realizing that I was actually making progress, I got more and more into it. And then it went from like more of a side thing to a focal point of what I wanted to do in the creative realm. So I was producing for, I don't know, maybe 15 years as it started to get a little bit more and more serious for me. And then the next step was wanting to get into actually playing music and DJing, and moved out to California, like San Francisco area for a couple years, and then moved down to LA because I was tired of driving 6 hours to get down here for gigs and stuff. So we moved down here. It seemed like a better kind of hot spot for everything, and it's been pretty awesome since.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. That sounds like an amazing journey from discovering hardstyle accidentally and then going from there. So I was curious, is there any specific inspiration that brought you to want to produce?
I had a few favorite artists that I respected for different reasons, like Noise Controllers, Audio Freak. I liked how all of their sound design was very interesting, and not every track felt so like samey. I feel like a lot of people kind of stay in the like the cookie cutter systematic approach to making tracks where they don't feel as unique, and that was something that I always gravitated towards. So I kind of coined in on that as something that inspired me. So I had a few artists that did that inspired me, but I think kind of when I went into it, I went into it with the mindset of, hardstyle was what got me into production, but after exclusively jamming to that for so long and producing that, I went into it very like open-ended of, I still like other genres, and I always, at least, for the last decade, saw this sort of divide between hardstyle and like other bass music genres, like, drum and bass, dubstep, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And there aren't too many people that, put them together. So I had always had an interest in like the hybrid stuff where I can incorporate, hard dance music with, something that feels like like a bass drop or a DMB or something like that. So that was always something that inspired me, was I'm not getting stale on any particular genre because I'm doing them all at the same time. Obviously, like a lot of my gigs are through hardstyle shows, but I still have an affinity to play as much other stuff as I can without getting canceled. So I kind of like the ability to still keep it fresh and kind of rotate my tastes and not feel boxed in at all. And I went into it day one, like intentionally trying to keep it open-ended. Like when I launched this project, it was on January 1st, 2018. I put out like a little video on Facebook that was like a 5-track teaser of the stuff I was going to be putting out, and just about every single track was like a hybrid track. So day one, I went into it going like, it's not, for me, it's not just hardstyle. Like I like to see and challenge myself on like blending genres that I like and keeping it like that. And it's been, you know, what, like 8 years now that I've been doing this project. And I would say the vast majority, maybe like 80% of my tracks are mostly hybrid tracks. And that's what keeps it fun and still creative for me, is I feel like I can do something different with like every track that I make.
Do you remember any hardstyle track that you heard for the first time that got introduced you to the genre?
First, man, that's so long ago. I mean, there was definitely some like iconic tracks where I'm like, oh, like this is like a timeless reverse bass, like Headhunters Make It Loud, like something like that, where you're like, oh, or like you go to a festival and like everybody plays that track and you're like, oh, like this is, you know, something that's going to stick around for a while or kind of define the genres. It's hard for me to really go into like a specific track because there's so many over the last 15, like 20 years. But like a lot of the Noise Controllers E=NC² album was like really cool for me. Audio Freak did a lot of stuff, like the Audiology album. I only own one album in CD format, and it's the Audio Freak Audiology album. That's the only CD that I own. And I was like, okay, cool. This one's awesome. Yeah.
That's cool. So, do you have any background in music? Did you like play an instrument in high school or anything?
Good question. My own musical ability in terms of real instruments is pretty limited. I was in band. I played the trumpet. I played a little tiny bit of guitar because my dad actually like makes guitars and he plays guitars and stuff. So we always had like, you know, Marshall amp stacks around the house and, you know, floor pedals and stuff. So he was more musically inclined for sure, but he was more into like rock and classic rock and metal and stuff like that. And once I found my own kind of flavor in the like electronic world, you know, I didn't have any desire to pick up any classic, you know, analog instruments.
Yeah.
I did want to pick up piano because I feel like that's super universal, and I was into it for a little bit, but I really just like clicking on a computer and making music. Like what I like about production is you're not stuck to playing the one instrument. You can make your own instruments, and then you can have sounds that have like you're making instruments that people haven't even heard before. So like that was always something that was appealing to me too.
So did you learn music theory along the way, or you didn't pay much attention to it?
I think I brute forced it, which was just doing it and then being bad, and then doing it and being less bad, and then slowly picking up certain motifs. Like I know some now, but never really through any direct intentional training. It was more you know, experimentation and then failure, or like, why doesn't this specific thing sound good? And then honestly, like with where we're at today with production, I mean, you can find pretty much anything on YouTube. So yeah, I mean, I've watched some theory related videos. It's hard to say what my takeaway was from all that. But anything that I've ever wanted to learn through production or through theory, I've just YouTubed it, or maybe like asked a friend that I know that is excelling in a certain field. I've definitely kept a pretty consistent group of friends that when I started production, you know, we're all at the same level, so we're learning and growing off of each other. And then maybe you do a collab and you realize, oh, somebody does this thing this totally different way. I didn't even know you could do it like that, or kind of feeding off of each other's strengths, and then everybody kind of gets better through each other and just through talking about it and experimentation and stuff. So it's a very brute force method of learning, but maybe that's why it's taken me 15 years to get to where I'm at now.
I mean, I would say the first track you created, to circle back on what you were explaining about how you had an open mindset with starting to produce, I noticed was like very dubstep. And then the second one was like a good blend between the two. And I think by like the fourth track you released, basically started getting into like hardstyle. And then after, I think it was your track with Suffix. I know I played that when I was over, by the way. It's one of the coolest blends since 2011-12, when they used to blend dubstep and hardstyle, but it has the melody with your dubstep like way over. And I don't know, I think it's iconic.
Yeah, I think it's a fun way to keep your tracks unique, and something that appealed to me about that kind of motif was that, maybe the people that you're referencing in that by saying like, oh yeah, some people were doing some hybrid stuff. It's true. Some people were like, I could reference a few people that were doing that, but in essence, they were hardstyle producers. So, and then a lot of them were already pretty popular in their respective communities. So they can't do that every track because they've built this legacy around being a hardstyle producer. So if they do this one-off tangent hybrid track, it's cool and it appeals to some people that are into it, but that's not their main fan base, and maybe it's not their main passion either. But for me, I like that so much that I had to make that my main thing, because then I can just do that every time, and that's what people expect from me at this point. So I can kind of, make music for myself and then build the community or the people that, like to listen to what I put out around that. So it never stays stale. And then I can keep people kind of on their toes with every track not really sounding samey, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, 100%. Where we go, or wait, I forgot the name of it. It was I'll literally just look it up. I don't care.
The one on Wolf Clan, like last year, What We Do?
What We Do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is my favorite one. Drumstep, I like more than dubstep, and I do like a lot of dubstep tracks. It's very particular. I can't really get into the genre too much, but drumstep, I don't know what it is. It sounds fun, and I don't know. You did a really great blend with that track, so I was like,
yeah,
yes.
with a raw kick too. Yeah, and I'm not huge into the extreme stuff. Like, I mean, in essence, what I like is high energy dance floor music. I just like the full spectrum of that, and I can go from hardstyle to dubstep to drum and bass to whatever. I think it's a nice place to be in, because you can sort of refresh the energy over and over and over again throughout like a set, like when you're actually playing music. Like, I personally, opinions here, I'm not a huge fan of a whole raw style set, but if you're playing a hardstyle set and you drop in some raw style as a spice, then it hits really, really crazy, and then the energy kind of resets. And a lot of my DJ sets are intentionally like, I won't play too much of a certain thing in a row, so that when I go from like a reverse bass to like a raw kick to like a drum and bass drop to a dubstep drop and then back to like some techie kick hardstyle, stuff like that, it's constantly like resetting the energy, and it's like pretty quick mixing too. I mean, I think I run through like usually 55 tracks in an hour, just about like a track a minute, so it's constantly like refreshing the energy and changing like the rhythms and the different sound design. And that's where all these other subgenres come into play, because they're all used like as a spice and not as an hour of, to me, what feels like the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So you would say 55 tracks per one set? This is what?
Like 55 to 60. It just depends on if there's any. I don't really play any tracks like all the way out, so a lot of it is mostly mid intros. That's like my favorite part of hardstyle tracks most of the time, which might be kind of, a lot of people love like the big melodies and then the big, melodic climax or anticlimax or whatever. But a lot of the tracks that I really mess with are tracks that go right into like an interesting, strong mid intro and then go right into another like 16 bar or 8 bar buildup right after that. And then that's usually my mix point where I can run a mid intro, and then as that mid intro comes into another buildup, I'll stack another buildup on top of that and then switch into the next track. And then I can just kind of run this combo of like fat mid intros over and over again, and then switch up to a different genre through that. A lot of bass music is like structured in a way where it'll have, its first kind of drop and then go right into another buildup. So it's kind of like combo food where you can just keep stacking them and feeding into each other, and you just have drops and then buildups and drops and buildups. And for me, that always felt like the kind of sets that I enjoyed playing, because for long breaks, I don't know what to do with myself. If I'm not mixing or like hyping the crowd up, I just get I start looking around. I'm like, oh man, like I feel like I should be doing something.
Okay. Yeah, man, your music is really like have a unique sound within the, I don't know, you basically, I would describe as a listener, I couldn't say that you are specific genre. It seems like, you have a little bit of hardstyle, a little bit of dubstep. And when I found out your music, I was like, this is really unique. Like there are no, so I heard some of the noise controller stuff. He also did like kind of dubstep experimental stuff in the past.
Yeah.
And so, for me as a aspiring producer, is really difficult to see, to hear these kind of mixed styles in the same tracks. So I'm wondering what is your approach in creating music? How do you usually start making the track? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it comes from usually one of two things. Either like maybe I hear another track and I something in that inspires a certain idea, and then I'll just kind of go from there. Or maybe I'm starting a production and I key in on like a specific motif, like a certain sound inspires the rest of the track. I think a lot of the times I'll just start with a chord progression and see if I can make a chord progression that sounds interesting. Because even if I'm not making a melodic hardstyle track that's going to have like a really pronounced melody, you're still, you still have to know what key the track is in and how you want to, what the vibe is going to be. Even if it's some instrumentation in the background, usually you still need some type of chord progression going on. So, yeah, I usually start with a chord progression to set the vibe, and then I'll kind of build around that. Sometimes I start with the mid intro or like the climax. Other times I'll just start with the intro with some interesting sound design, and then kind of flesh everything out like from the beginning to the end. So it does kind of vary, but there is usually one key point where I get to a certain sound and I'm like, oh, this is like the track is going to be based around this sort of theme or this sort of style, and then just building from there. And then I kind of just freestyle it. Like I don't usually go into it going like, oh, this track is going to sound like this. I just sort of start, and then wherever I end up, like that's the song.
So
Nice.
can I ask, with What We Do, what was the sound in that track that you built everything around?
I think I found the vocals later on. Sometimes, like I know a lot of people will start with vocals. If you're starting with any kind of melodic vocals, that's usually going to set your inspiration for like the chord progression that you're going to build, behind the vocals and stuff like that. I usually end up finding vocals later, so I get vocals lower for that specific track. I feel like I'd have to listen to it again. Let me think.
Want me to play?
I think I just started with knowing that I wanted to do something like a little more aggressive. So I knew it was going to be a raw kick. I knew it was going to be fast, and I knew I wanted to do some type of drum and bass. So I think that track's at like 160. It might be 165, but I think it's at 160. And I just knew hard, fast kick right into a build up into like a drum and bass drop. That was the only thing that I knew going into the track. And then as it sort of started to flesh itself out with like the structure, I eventually found the vocals and threw the vocals in there. But it's really like, I'm not going into it going like, oh, I want an ARP that sounds like this, and then I like start clicking. It's like, no, I just go in there and start throwing stuff together, and then once something, I wish I could show you all the new unreleased stuff. Like some of the stuff in the tracks that aren't out yet. I think I have like 7 or 8 tracks that are done that aren't out yet, that are just pending release. Some of those had a more intentional sound where I built it around like this one specific kind of topic per track. So I think I have a problem with overproducing tracks. Like a lot of the times when I'm making a track, I'll make it like really complicated, and it might have a lot of ideas going on at the same time. And then I end up kind of trimming it back. So I'll be like, okay, this is insane. It's too crazy. There's like way too much stuff going on. And then I'll take out the stuff that isn't essential, and then it gets a little bit more bare bones, and then I can re-glue that like main idea back together. So it's kind of chaotic. Don't look at my project files, man. It's a mess. It's really all over the place.
Are you so you said sometimes you put the vocal after you create the whole theme, and I'm wondering, like, are you looking for a vocalist, or are you just looking for samples of vocals?
I usually just find whatever I can online. I don't usually look out, because I feel like if you're looking for a specific vocalist, a lot of the times maybe it's going to be more melodic, like less something that's you're going to come with the lyrics, you're going to have a specific sound in mind, and you want it to be melodic, and maybe you give them a chord progression, and then they can get the vocals right for the track. I've never really done that. I mean, out of all the people that I've got locked on, like here's an example with Ravens of the Night, which was the first release on Raven. The vocalist in that is Jeff Steitzer. I don't know if you're familiar with who that is.
You said Jeff Said?
Jeff Steitzer. Okay, so Jeff Steitzer is the multiplayer voice announcer from the hit franchise Halo. So the guy who says like double kill, triple kill, like that's him. Yeah. So I hit him up, and I got him to do vocals for a track custom. And then obviously like I post processing, I like lowered the pitch a little bit and did kind of like some extra effects and stuff. So it doesn't really sound like him unless you know that it's him. But yeah, it's Jeff Steitzer, the voice from Halo. So I don't know, but it's like spoken word. It's not melodic. I just had him.
Was it your specific idea to find especially him in order to get a vocal from him? Or
yeah, I thought it would be a cool idea. I think me and some of the other hardstyle friends, I think it was me, Aerolite, KG, we were playing Halo, and then I don't know, the idea just kind of came up. I was like, I should hit this guy up, and he's
it's interesting. Yeah.
he's open to that kind of stuff, and I gave him the idea and worked with him. I gave him like all the lyrics that I wanted to say for the song, and then had him record everything, and that was how that came out.
Nice.
Bro, that's mind-blowing. So with Ravens of the Night as your latest release, it's released under your label Raven. So do you want to explain how you got started with that, or how it all
began? Sure. Okay. Good pivot. So that label was sort of the like amalgamation of being in the community and playing shows and talking to other producers and releasing on different labels myself, sort of over the course of like, let's say a 6-year span. This label was an idea that came out of what I felt like was something that we didn't have in the community, specifically in America. So a lot of the top labels are obviously like, Belgian, or they're not here. They're like European labels are the only kind of huge labels for hardstyle in most cases. I didn't feel like we had a great platform that highlighted specifically like American artists. So we have a couple, kind of more like up and comer labels, and then we have I guess like the only thing that people might tie in is we have Basscon Records here, but Basscon Records isn't exclusively for like American artists. So we And then anybody that's here that wants to push their music to like a bigger platform is going to send everything to like a big European label.
Yeah.
I felt like we didn't have a label here that was highlighting the best that we had to offer. And I feel like with where we're at in the community now, there are plenty of people that are at that level. So a lot of the people that are on Raven currently or releasing on Raven in the future already have releases with like Scantrax and Dirty Works and all the like big contenders. So I was like, I know we have the quality for it, but we don't have a platform that has that same level of quality. And I had been releasing with Dirty Works for like 5 or 6 years now too. So
do you also
originally
release under Wolf Clan also?
Yeah. So Wolf Clan is a sub-label of Dirty Works, which was supposed to be originally like their urban. It was supposed to be like their urban, like hybrid. A lot of the first Wolf Clan releases were like mixed more with trap, and then I pulled up and started doing a lot of like dubstep and drum and bass and other stuff, and it made sense to go on Wolf Clan as opposed to like the other pure hardstyle labels with Dirty Works. So I sort of found my home there, and then released there pretty actively because, you know, as I said before, pretty much all the tracks I make are like hybrid tracks. So I found my home with Wolf Clan, and then a lot of the people that used to release there don't release there anymore. And then I kind of got into this release with Wolf Clan for everything mentality, which was fine. But then it was just me and Technoclash releasing on Wolf Clan back to back to back. Like we were just trading back and forth, releasing tracks on Wolf Clan. So it was like kind of our thing. And then Technoclash went and made Smashed Society, which is his essentially like a German only hardstyle label. And then it was just me on Wolf Clan for like, I mean, I have the last like 6 releases on Wolf Clan like in a row. And then I took a break for a little bit, was working on some other stuff, and I didn't send anything. And then it had been a while. I had sent another track, and then Wolf Clan essentially, you know, it pretty much shut down. They were like, yeah, like it was just you, and we don't want to revive it just for like a single track from you every now and again. So that project kind of fell off with Wolf Clan. But that was one of my main release hubs for a while. You know, it was a good platform. Everything still went up on like the Dirty Works page, and it worked for me. But back to the original question of like how did kind of Raven come into play is, you know, talking with people like other producers and being involved in the community kind of left me in a spot where I realized we don't have sort of a centralized hub for like the best that we have to offer. So I wanted to make that platform happen. I felt like there was a big gap because it was like the best of the best would send to the European labels that would take their stuff because they had bigger pull, and then everybody else was stuck on either sending something to a label that's in its infancy here that just didn't really have the kind of kickback for like a higher production quality artist.
Yeah.
And it was only those 2 options. So this is the third option, which is still the same quality as like, for example, like a Dirty Works sub label. That's kind of like the quality standard that we're at. And then everything that we put out still goes through to like the Hardstyle daily, like Spotify playlist and stuff. So we're starting with something. We're not starting like from ground zero.
It's a really new project, and it was started the beginning of this year, right? 2024.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as it's lifting off, I see so far Hartshorn, yourself, Kygor, Lucky Rabbit, and those are American hard hitters, man. I am excited to see where it's going to take off. It's only at its infancy, and it has like exactly what you described. The best that American is offering right now, and it's perfectly in place for, as you described, somewhere where I want to establish the American hardstyle scene. I don't want to put myself, because my quality is good, but on Dirty Works because that's European. So what's the next American label that kind of matches? Raven. You're on.
Yeah. I wanted to keep like quality level high, and you know, make sure that it could be a repository for people that want to know who is actually putting out, like who's put enough time into their craft where their quality is considerably good.
Yeah.
And it's kind of tricky because you can't just say that you want that without having any kind of allure to release with the label. Like if I just came into it with just the idea and, you know, zero followers on the label, and you know, having the idea is one thing, but then having the idea that people actually support and has some type of, what would be the right way to word it? It's kind of tricky. It's so multifaceted, and I've thought about it for a while as through the creation, which was like mainly the last half year up until we released it now, and then still thinking of ideas to move forward. We wanted to set the precedent for our, you know, for quality, and for giving the artists their freedom to kind of do whatever they want. So nobody's boxed into a specific label's sound. You could take somebody that releases on a certain label, and a lot of these other labels have a specific sound. And then if you're in and you're releasing with that label, when you sit down to go produce, you're like, I could try some weird shit, or I could make the music that I know will fit this label that I'm already on. And then a lot of the times you're just going to make what you know is going to be released on the label that you're working with. So I feel like it kind of gimps your creativity. And, you know, this is pretty open-ended. So genre-wise, it's still in the hardstyle, hard dance realm, but you can sit down and make whatever you want. And as long as it's a good quality production and makes sense in the, you know, hardstyle realm, then it could fit here.
Are you guys thinking about within the Raven about making some events in the future?
Yeah, funny you mentioned that. I've been talking with people. People have actually came to me showing more interest, which I had hopes that someday we would get to that point, but I hadn't reached out about it. And then people have instead reached out to me that are interested in, you know, using Raven as a repository for artists to come out and play shows. So like either doing a label takeover show where it's all Raven artists, or getting a headliner and supporting act from Raven, because like I said, they know that Raven has the quality and has the artists to be able to support that. So another reason for having the label is, like, not to be redundant, but having that repository is good for, I think, for everybody. It's good for the listeners, because if they're like, hey, we want to see like who's killing it that's local to America, they can go here and check all their releases, and you know, the quality is going to be there. It's going to be good stuff.
And it's also
the talent buyers too. They can go and look at the list and be like, hey, who might be worth booking? Who's like put their effort into like getting their act up and stuff, and they can go and check it out.
It's also good for producers, because I spoke to some of the producers that have a good tracks, at least for my opinion, you know, and they usually release this on their own without labels, and they are having problems with bookings. And they say, like, you know, if we have a hardstyle label here in the US, let's say I have one friend of mine who live in Miami. And let's say if he knows about the label, he immediately wants to get released with them, because it's also networking. It's mostly important as a networking, and it's very helpful. I'm sure there are a lot of artists, producers who live within US, but they probably don't know about community. Let's say how I found out about it recently.
Yeah, it was very like, I wanted to make this label project for, like, I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for, I felt like all the people that fell into this category of artists that were making quality stuff, but either didn't want to send everything to like a bigger label, or couldn't quite get to that point, but still have really quality tracks. And this is kind of like the platform in the middle, where, you know, it's not for entry level producers, you know, it's not for triple A tier headliners. It's for all the people that are, you know, in the roots of the like up and comer community, that are still making a name for themselves, but are definitely worth like checking out. This is kind of the hub for all that, and I think everybody benefits, from the artists to the fans to potentially like you know, booking agents for people that want to throw shows, and have supporting acts from people that are, you know, confirmed to be making like great music.
So the next event that Raven will potentially hold will have a stacked lineup of Kiji, Lucky Rabbit, yourself, all of them, multiple hard dance artists from America. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
I wish I could say all the other names that are on the list too, but like it keeps getting better and better. A lot of people have multiple releases, but there's another like 8 names that I could rattle off that are coming up soon too. So we already have releases, with a couple small gaps. We have releases already until the end of the year. So I showed a lot of interest like when it first launched. A lot of people have multiple tracks that are coming out, and then we have some new people that are like really good quality that have never put out music before, but like you'll be surprised, like people that haven't been inspired to actually push for releases until this platform existed, and then coming at me with some stuff from like, how are you not already like in this higher spot? So it's cool. I think it's been fun developing it and then watching it develop. I mean, when I started, I was doing everything myself. So like everything from the graphic design and the website and all the back end stuff. And then after it kind of came to fruition and we started to actually get the releases out, I got a little bit of a small team on board. So I have some people helping me out with some of the other stuff now.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot, man. It's been a growing process for me too, to actually make all the stuff happen, and then the upkeep, and then continuing to grow the brand, and keep improving the platform for everybody, from the artists to the fans, etc. So it's been fun watching it develop, and you know, I'm learning as I go with all this, but in the end, I think it's still something that we collectively needed as a community, and I feel like a lot of the people that are on board sending their music this way share the same kind of vision, and support the idea of the project, and it's been fun watching it grow.
That's super awesome that you're taking the handle and pioneering that. I feel like it's 2024. There's been so much good talent over a decade in America, and this seems like the best kind of thing yet for a platform to get those releases out. So hey, man, I super appreciate that. Just as a fan perspective, I also wanted to kind of ask, other than this great accomplishment you've achieved, are there any other accomplishments or memorable moments you've had along in your career?
Oh yeah, this is just me humble bragging segment. Perfect. No, yeah, it's been cool. I mean, there's been a couple like defining moments, like as a producer starting out, you know, not getting you know, everybody starts from the bottom, right? So any small achievement feels like it's the next thing that motivates you to keep going. So I remember you know, my first kind of setup was pretty janky, and I was in like kind of a rough spot in my life too, and I was like sleeping on the floor on an air mattress, and I had like a really crappy like studio little setup on an old vintage vanity drawer with like some $60 speakers and some bad headphones. And the first release that I put out on like this Talon project was Primal Source, which was made on this like, you know, kind of a janky setup. And I was, like I said, I was in a weird spot, you know, with life stuff. And then that track got played twice at EDC. So I was like, boom, that was the first motivator where I was like, it was KG and Darksiders both ended up playing that, and I was there too. So I got to experience it, and I was like, okay, so like, what else could come out of this? You know, if that was a big first motivator for like, oh, something happened, that would, you know, my efforts have translated into something. And then like we mentioned the like the Suffix collab, I was at Decibel Decibel, and I just went to go see Noise Controllers at Main Stage, and he just dropped that track, and I was like, "What? Like, this is crazy." I'm on the other side of this time I'm on the other side of the planet, and then one of these like iconic dudes that got me into producing like played one of my tracks out, and that was insane. I was like, okay, that's cool. And then over the course of like getting out releases, having like, multiple releases with Dirty Works, like that was a big inspiration or like kind of a goal for me. And then obviously like playing EDC a couple years ago was a big one for sure. That was, I feel like everybody has that as sort of a staple on their DJ bucket list. So it was cool to check that one off the list. And then, yeah, I don't know, man, like just being out there, every show feels like an accomplishment. It feels validating. The thing with producing is like it takes so long before you find validation. I feel like for most people that are trying to excel at it, everybody starts being pretty bad at it, and it's like the biggest grind I've done my whole life was trying to get good at like making music and stuff. And
what kind of tips do you have for all the aspiring DJs and producers, maybe those that are starting to lose hope because they've spent so many years, but what would you say for that?
Oh, just give up. It's really hard. It's stressful. No, I would say, I mean, okay, to quote Bob Ross, talent is just a pursued interest. Pretty sure Bob Ross said that. So it's like, if you're into it and you're having fun, like keep it fun for one, because once you start getting into like all the extra stuff, like, oh, I have to post on social media and I have to like, what do I need to do to get these gigs? And what do I got to do to like, once you really start to get into the game of everything, it can be stressful and it can be demotivating. And all the people that you're competing with for time slots are usually like your friends, like all the other people that are at the same level in the community. So a lot of people suffer from like jealousy issues or wondering why they're not good enough yet, and people get in their own head comparing themselves to others. And there's a lot that goes into being able to take feedback from yourself and from others and decide what matters and what doesn't matter. But like in essence, you need to have fun with it, keep it fresh. It's okay to take breaks. Obviously, this is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You gotta just, if you like it, keep doing it, and if you don't like it, nobody's gonna force you to keep going.
Do you think having expectation is a good thing or bad thing in terms of music and creativity?
It's a good question. I've always kind of had I always have had the mindset of having expectations in general is a bad thing. Because let's say you think you made some banger that a label's going to take, and let's say they do even take it, and you're like, this is going to get 1 million views, and then it gets like 30K. Yeah. You had the expectation for 1 mil, and now you're disappointed because 30K is, a small fraction of that. But if you just go into it with no expectations and whatever happens, oh, that 30K feels like more than, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And especially with like this industry, you don't know when anything big is going to happen. I would say the only expectation you should have of yourself is to like, really put the time into it, keep working on it. And, you can't force yourself to be motivated. So just do what you can, try to stay active, like keep doing it. Just don't stop doing it would be the only expectation that I have. Like if you want to see any kind of growth, you just have to keep doing it. And don't be scared to like get out of your comfort zone, because your best stuff usually comes from when you are, trying something new or trying a new idea and, really getting out there. And I'm a huge proponent of that. I love just doing new things, obviously, like trying things people haven't done before or putting your own twist on it. And like, don't stay comfortable. That's the main thing. Don't stay comfortable, and then just keep doing it, and something will click and you'll develop your own sound signature, or you'll bring something to the table, like maybe with your DJ act or your identity that you're putting out into the world, that is like something will eventually click, but you just can't stop. You just gotta keep going.
Thanks for these kind of words, because I think for myself, and I specifically know some guys, I saw their Facebook posts where they say, I don't feel motivations to keep going, and I just I'm thinking to give up. And when I see these kind of comments, it's kind of unfortunately which happens. And yeah, I think it's mostly happens also because of the expectations they've set for themselves. I have one more question. So
I agree.
yes. So I wanted to also ask, when you say keep going, do you mean like if you don't have motivations to do anything else, you still keep working?
Well, if you know that it's something that you want to do and you want to get better and you want to see the numbers grow or you want to see your production quality go, like keep going in the long-term approach. You're never going to get better if you quit. You're never going to get that first viral track if you stop making music. So I wouldn't say push yourself through bad times. Like if you're not feeling like producing, you don't have to produce. I would say it's like, part of one of the struggles of like being an artist and taking on so many creative projects and, setting these expectations for yourself is, there's going to be, it's a struggle, man. There's a lot of like people that suffer from, including myself, of like, keeping your mental health in a good condition is going to give you the best art. You're and it's going to keep you alive. That's probably also good. It's such a big, vast, creative world of doing music, and then especially if you're also trying to put yourself out there to grow like your brand. Essentially, it is stressful. Yeah. So finding ways to mitigate the stress and just going the distance means, keep going when the time is right. If you're feeling like you're in a bad spot and you're feeling like the thing that you like is hurting you more than it's helping you, take a break. It's fine. You'll be all right.
That's a beautiful note. I think you have described a lot of hidden background thoughts from artists, and you unveiled a lot of what fans might not think of when it comes to their biggest artists and the background and what they go through and their struggles. And I've learned a lot from a few other of either my friends or other artists I spoke with that it takes hard work and it takes consistency, and you have to know when to step back if you need to. And the biggest thing is just community support. So it's really great that you have brought this new label. You're doing things to keep the community strong, and you're bringing a great rise to American hard dance. And I am all for it. So I'm ever full grateful to have you as a guest for this interview, and I just wanted to appreciate your time.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I'm happy to talk about all the stuff that's been a very passionate topic for me for such a long time. I could keep going, man. This is I love to talk about this stuff with other people that are interested in the topic, and I always support anybody that likes the craft, whether you're from like a listener perspective or just a DJ perspective or an aspiring producer perspective. I mean, it's all just how we choose to spend our time and the stuff that we like. Maybe we can't help it. Maybe we want to get deeper into the community, and it's kind of, for most people, like it's a lifelong thing, or at least it's a big chunk. I mean, we're all enjoying it for our own different reasons, and everybody has something that they want to get out of the community. Like, so everybody's doing it for maybe their own reasons, but there's a big shared kind of hive mind of like this whole genre and this whole aspect of what we choose to do with our time and what we choose to enjoy. And if we're all on the same page, it's usually a pretty cool thing that we've got going on.
Always. So no, with that, I'll wrap it up. But also with what you said earlier, I might down the road plan to have follow-up interviews. So if you're ever interested to see your progress and how things have grown, I plan on reheating up a few of the artists I've interviewed to include you. So that would be awesome if you're up for that.
Oh yeah. I could do this whenever. Like I said, I like to talk. I like to talk.
Yeah, we'll like to talk as well. So
cool, dope.